2023 has been a absolutely stacked year for video games. Some of the highest rated games and one of the best rated first half of the year that I have ever covered in my 10 plus years of covering the gaming industry. But in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking down where we are right now at the halfway point when it comes to the game of the year voting, what I think are my personal picks right now. Also, we're going to be going over what I think is going to happen at the TGA's The Game of the Year Award. So we're going to be breaking down 3 separate lists here. It's going to be a ton of fun. But before we get into that, guys, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get all of PlayerEssence's videos as soon as I drop them right here. And check out our PE Live every single day, daily, 7 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the channel. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're talking about the game of the year. Once again, stacked year, but let's go over right now where I feel the game of the year voting is. So if I had to pick 6 games, because that's usually what they pick, 6 games, here is my list. We're going to start off here with Resident Evil 4 Remake, 93 average on Metacritic. Incredible game. I love it so much. Next up, Hi-Fi Rush, 89 average, also very good. A bit short, but really a surprise and a fantastically made game. Next up is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom with a 96 rating. I think this is the front runner right now, but could there be an upset here? We'll have to wait and see on that one. Next up is Street Fighter 6 with a 92 average. Hard for fighting games to get in, but still right now at this point, I think Street Fighter 6 would make the list for the first half game of the year. Next up is Diablo 4, 88 on the low side with the PlayStation 5, but up to 91 on the Xbox Series. I think that this game is incredibly good, but it's dampened a little bit by the controversies surrounding the always online connection and how that's going to fare overall with the voting towards the end of the year. But still, for the first half of the year, Diablo 4 absolutely one of the best rated and what I think are the front runners. And last but definitely not least is Final Fantasy 16 with an 88 average. So as you can see, this is a pretty stacked first half of the year. No game here is under an 88, and that doesn't even include stuff that's on the fringe or that could get in. Next up, I'm going to be going over my personal game of the year so far. So this is in the first half, what I think personally, what I've played, what I like, or what I think is game of the year for me, or the nominees that I would have in my own personal PlayerEssence show. So Resident Evil 4 Remake, 93 average, like I stated, very good game. I loved it, played it all the way through, put 30 plus hours. It's a phenomenal remake. Next up is Fire Emblem Engage, definitely one of the lower rated games, but for me, Fire Emblem Engage was a lot of fun to play through, and I do think that Fire Emblem Engage has a ton of content, especially with the DLC drops and some of the updates that they did. It's a really fun game, and as a strategy RPG, you can say there's questions about the story or the tone, but when it comes to the mechanics and the strategy RPG gameplay, second to none. That game is great when it comes down to the gameplay, and that wasn't really the issue with a lot of people's reviews overall. It was more some of the story stuff and the tone, but gameplay still king when it comes to strategy RPGs and Fire Emblem. Now next up is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, once again front runner. I don't need to say too much more about this. Highest rated game of the year, one of the highest rated games of all time, has a 96 on OpenCritic, has a 96 on Metacritic. The game is just packed full of content. It's got a great story, good graphics, good everything for me. Tears of the Kingdom by far is one of the most complete packages and experiences out there, and I think that a lot of people are going to be voting for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom as their personal game of the year. Now next up is Street Fighter 6. I've been watching a ton of this game and the quality is there, and at some point I think I'm going to get into Street Fighter 6. I've just been a little bit busy with some other games, but Street Fighter 6 seems to be the game for me when it comes to a core traditional 2D fighting game that I want to spend some more time in. So I do plan on investing more time into Street Fighter 6. I do think that the game is incredible. The online play is fantastic. I've been watching people play. It's super silky smooth. It's got great rollback netcode. It's got really good combos and gameplay. Street Fighter 6 is the real deal. I think it's it's a fantastic game. Now, there's some other fighting games coming out later this year, but man, it is going to be hard to match what they've done with Street Fighter 6 from an online standpoint, also from the characters, mechanics. It's really good. Next up, Final Fantasy 16. I've been playing a number of hours in now, and this game is such a unique combination of like Devil May Cry, the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm series, and light Final Fantasy themes here and there to create a unique experience that I'm not completely enamored and in love with, but I'm still enjoying quite a bit. So for me, Final Fantasy 16 is absolutely in my own personal game of the year voting here. And last but definitely not least, this one probably doesn't qualify because I bet some of you guys were probably thinking, well, where's this game at? And that's Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. That is the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that has a 92 average on Metacritic. It's actually one of the best rated games when it comes to what's released this year. The only issue I think for this game for a lot of people out there is, one, didn't get a lot of reviews, so a lot of people didn't play the game, and also two, it's not a standalone. It's tied to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, so therefore you have to play and beat Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to really kind of get into Future Redeemed. Now you can just jump right into it, so you can buy Xenoblade Chronicles 3, then buy Future Redeemed, but I think a lot of people probably aren't going to do that, so I think that led to less reviews and everything. But for those who did play it, for all the Xenoblade fans out there, many say that this is the best mechanically Xenoblade game. When it comes to combat, when it comes to the evolution of the systems, to me, I think that is the truth. This game, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, is absolutely exquisite. It is very good, and I highly recommend everybody who's played a Xenoblade game before, but especially if you've played Xenoblade Chronicles 3, don't wait any longer, play Future Redeemed. It wraps up the series in terms of this point so well. So yes, I cannot stress how good this game is, and obviously it shows with that 92 average on Metacritic. Now, we went through the list here, but now we have to get to the actual meat and potatoes. What I think is going to be the 6 nominees, the locks for the TGA's Game of the Year and many of the major outlets' Game of the Year as well. So let's get into it here, guys. Let's start off with Resident Evil 4 Remake. Once again, pulling off the trifecta here, Resident Evil 4 Remake on every single list that I have. It's that good. It deserves it. Next up is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Once again, this game also pulling off the trifecta. It deserves it. Highest rated game since Elden Ring of last year when it comes to major AAA games. It is absolutely the front runner right now, but it could run into some problems like I'm about to state in just a bit once we clear up everything here. Next up is Final Fantasy 16. 88 average, still an incredible experience, kind of takes Final Fantasy in a new direction. I think that does get you extra kudos points, also being a PS5 exclusive as well. You know, a lot of the reviewers are going to be playing that game, so Final Fantasy 16 is absolutely, in my opinion, going to be a lock for the Game of the Year voting. Next up is Starfield as well. Now, this is a little bit of a wild card, right? Because we think Starfield's going to be good, but we don't know if it's going to be incredibly good. So I'm going based off of the pedigree of what we've seen from Bethesda and their previous major titles. Stuff like Skyrim, stuff like Fallout. These games usually at release review really well and are right there in the Game of the Year conversation, many times even winning it. Fallout 3 definitely in there and won it. That was before the TGAs, but there was absolutely Fallout 3 getting Game of the Year back in like 2008 or 2009, whenever that game came out. Then of course Skyrim winning so many Game of the Years with what that game did back on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. So to me, Skyrim and also Fallout give, I would say, Bethesda some clout towards this if Starfield is that good. If it's a high 80s / low 90s or 90s rated game, I think it's gonna get in there because it's such a different type of experience when it comes to gaming. Really, nobody's building something like this on console, so I think that Starfield does get in here. Now, last with my locks, or what I think is gonna be guaranteed, Spider-Man 2. I think that this game, obviously PS5 exclusive, coming out in the big part end of the year. It's gonna be fresh on the voters' minds, and if you look at the previous games, Spider-Man Miles Morales and also the Spider-Man game, those have an 87 to 85 average, so it's right up there to take that next step when it comes down to it. And it's been nominated before. Spider-Man was nominated back when that came out when it comes to the TGAs, so it's no stranger to being in the Game of the Year conversation. Spider-Man 2 looks absolutely incredible. Looks like they're taking up the action even to the next level. I can see this game breaking into the low 90s or so, or even higher 80s, 88, 89, over what the Spider-Man game got back on the PlayStation 4. Now, I have 3 games here that I think that could be interchangeable, because for those who don't know, when it comes to the TGAs, you'll have the big AAA RPGs usually occupy the first 5 slots, and then there's one game that gets in that's maybe kind of the oddball or indie game or something that you didn't quite expect. We've had it a lot before. It Takes Two, that game was rated really high. It won Game of the Year back in 2021. We had games like Celeste compete with the big dogs back when that game came out. So they always do that. They always include one of them. So I think that if Hollow Knight Silksong actually drops this year, that will be that indie representation. Now, I don't know about any other major or big indie games that dropped this year that could get in, but if you guys know about them, let me know about that in the comment section below. But I also think that Street Fighter 6, when it comes to what the TGAs are going to pick, that's going to be tougher to get in. Fighting games don't always get into the Game of the Year conversation. It's harder for them to just get in there. Now, it's possible. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has been nominated for Game of the Year. Super Smash Bros. For Wii U Game of the Year. Smash gets in, and I think that there's been some other games, I'm not 100% sure, but it's harder for fighting games to get nominated for the Game of the Year. So that's the reason why I think Street Fighter is one of those fringe, could be in, could not be in. We'll have to wait and see. And then last would be Hi-Fi Rush, just because it came out all the way at the beginning of the year. I'm not sure if it's going to be fresh in voters' minds. It's a little bit of a shorter type of game, so it could be in there, but it could not. I think that one of those 3 games could get in, but I think that the indie representation is so strong. So if Hollow Knight does make it this year, Silksong, I think that game gets in no problem. If not, we're going to have a little bit of a snub between Street Fighter, Hi-Fi Rush, or between a game that maybe Street Fighter gets in and one of these other games doesn't get in that I already said is a lock. I mean, there's definitely going to be some controversy there. There's always a game that gets kind of snubbed when it comes down to it, going back to games like Astral Chain or Fire Emblem Three Houses back in 2019, or even a game like Forza Horizon 5, which was the highest rated game back in 2021 for big titles, and that didn't even get in to the Game of the Year conversation. Once again, racing games. So I think it's going to be tough overall, but we'll see how it actually plays out. Now, could The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom have an upset here when it comes to the Game of the Year voting? I think it's absolutely possible. This is an iteration of what we got before with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, so it's not always going to be like, okay, a lot. Back in 2018 with God of War, that pretty much won all the awards. They made another sequel to that, and while it's still rated just as high, a lot of the awards went to Elden Ring, something that kind of came out and did something more different than maybe what you'd expect from that franchise. So could Starfield come in, swoop through, and actually steal the Game of the Year from there? I think if there was a game that would do it, it'd be that game, because it's something completely different, whereas the rest of the games here are kind of something that we've seen before when it comes to the major or big AAA type of titles. I think Hi-Fi Rush would just be difficult because it's a smaller game, but I think that's the game, Starfield, that I'd identify that could probably swoop in and maybe steal the Game of the Year award away from Tears of the Kingdom, or upset Tears of the Kingdom overall, because right now Tears of the Kingdom is absolutely the front runner just based off of everything so far. Obviously, sales aren't like a huge factor into it, but they're definitely a factor when it comes to what people have played, because remember, the fans vote and also the journalists vote too, and a lot of them probably played the game, a lot of fans played the game, a lot of people are just going to be voting for Tears of the Kingdom, so you have to factor that in. But Starfield with Game Pass and also PC, that can be big as well, so it's going to be interesting to see. But I think it's going to come down to the score of the game. I mean, if Starfield is in the lower 90s, 91, 92, 93, I think it absolutely has a chance. Obviously, if it's in the mid or higher 90s, it's absolutely potentially going to beat out Tears of the Kingdom. But if it's in the lower 80s or mid 80s or even high 80s, I'm not really sure if it has a real shot, but we're just going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to wait and see on Spider-Man as well, but once again, that seems more of like an iterative, and I'm not sure if it's going to rate as highly as Tears of the Kingdom, but we'll have to just wait and see on all that. Overall, it's going to be interesting for sure. There could be some upsets, especially when you start breaking down some of the other categories out there. But what are your thoughts when it comes down to this, guys? And what do you want to see win Game of the Year? What are your personal lists for game of the year so far right now, and also what you think will happen. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, check out our other videos right here on screen, and we will see you for the next one.